actually the governor of the Bank of, that was the whole major event and medium impact events we had for yesterday. And let's analyze how did this thing come out. Yesterday we had for AUD, it actually came out negative. So if you had sold AUD yesterday, you would have made quite a good a little bit of a fix from it, right? It was two high impact news and both of them came out negative. So definitely it's not just a little. I saw that chart, and most times trading around 2:30 a.m. is always a problem because that's our sleep time, right? So for those that stayed awake to take advantage of this, they would have been able to gain on a sell on AUD USD. So for the likes of AUD USD, AUD CAD and the like, so they would have made quite a lot from such instrument pair, right? It's connect, just allow. So we have NZD was actually a speech, right? And this was also a speech, right? For the one that came out 130 for the US, it actually came out positive. And if you notice, dollar index actually gave a very, very great boost yesterday, right? If you look at the likes of Euro USD kept coming down, and I was like, is it going to keep going down? But of course, I don't think the Eurozone, I think further policies on the Eurozone, especially with the fact that Lagarde will be speaking on Friday or today, that's today by 8 p.m. So with the fact that Lagarde will be speaking today by 8 p.m., I don't think that sell will continue on the likes of Euro USD, right? So Euro should actually gain a boost today, looking at the sentiment around the Bank of England. No, sorry, the ECB president, rather, the ECB president, President Lagarde. So that speech should give positive sentiment to the euro, and depending on what he's going to be talking about, if it doesn't favor the economy, then you might see further push down on instruments like Euro USD, right? So dollar is still strong, right? Dollar index is still strong, and existing home sales actually came out not very disappointing, but it just came out neutral because people actually expected, people were expecting 4.30 million, right? 4.30 million, but they ended up with 4.28 million. So it wasn't really a negative one per se, but it was just neutral. It didn't really change much. So that sentiment wouldn't even really affect the market. So it's just dollar is just riding from the sentiment from the unemployment claims that came out and the Philly manufacturing index that came out very, very positive for the dollar. So that being said, today we have news coming out on the card. So we'll be looking at instrument on card, right? We'll be looking at instrument on card by 1:30 p.m. We'll be looking at core retail sales and then retail sales coming out by 1:30, right? And then we have the US would also be giving a speech. So Fed Chair Powell will also be giving a speech, and that would also be an high impact news. That would be high impact news. So okay, remember what I said about the euro also gaining strength, right? So the fact that we are going to be having Powell speak also. So if you're trading on the likes of Euro USD, most likely, I don't know, it depends on what the speech actually says. But of course, whenever there's a speech like this, there's usually positive sentiment in expectation to what the news is actually going to state, right? In expectation to what the speaker is actually going to say. So getting positive sentiment and getting positive sentiment on the USD and also positive sentiment on the euro. And if you analyze this critically, you see that the USD is more of an high impact, while euro is more of a medium impact. So positive sentiment on the dollar might actually outweigh that on the euro. So on the likes of Euro USD this morning, you might still see a downturn for Euro USD, right? You might still see a downturn for Euro USD. And if the speech from Powell is actually in favor of the dollar, that's if it is a hawkish move in favor of the dollar, it would actually still push the likes of Euro USD down, right? And also push stocks down also, right? So that being said, let's quickly go to the charts, right? So before that, let's look at investing.com. We want to see what's the major thing that's actually giving, aside those news that came out yesterday, the major thing that has actually been giving the dollar a boost has actually been because of the debt deal hopes, right? So you know, of recent, the US that Joe Biden administration has actually been talking about increasing their debt cap, right? So it simply means they're trying to increase the number of the amount of money they can borrow, right, in the US. So currently they're looking at, if you read from this place here, he said Democratic negotiation told Joe Biden on Friday that they are making steady progress in talks with Republicans aimed at avoiding US default. Just days after Joe Biden, top US Congress Republican, that's Kevin McCarthy, underscored their determination to strike a deal as soon as possible to raise the government's 31.4 trillion debt ceiling. So currently the debt ceiling is at 33.4. So increasing this debt ceiling, so it's, and US now is currently suffering inflation, and they're having major issue paying out some of they're having major issue paying out some of their workers. For those that are working in the public sector, they're having issues settling them off and all of that. So they need more money to actually settle all of that. Please give me a moment. All right. So because they don't have enough money to actually settle some of the major this thing they need to settle in the economy, they need to borrow more money, right? And we all know how borrowing of money actually works, right? Especially if you're looking at it from Nigeria's standpoint. When you borrow money into an economy, it's only good for a while because it only helps you solve that problem, right? That's especially the problem of inflation for a while, right? Then after that, of course, you still have that debt at hand, which you still need repayment. So in the long run, borrowing or debt is not always a good thing. We all agree on that debt is not always a good thing in the long run. So the fact that they are borrowing money, they are trying to increase the amount of money they can borrow now, would give a positive sentiment to the dollar now, but in the long run, it's actually going to have a massive effect on the dollar. So let's just hope that before that massive effect starts playing out, Biden administration has come up with a solution to actually keep all these things in check before they go out of hand, right? So let's quickly just go into the charts and look at entries for the day. So don't forget, I said we'll be taking trade based on the high impact and medium impact news we are having for today. So we have news on CAD, we have news on USD, and we have news on Euro. So we'll be centering our trades around the CAD, the USD, and the Euro. The CAD, USD, and the Euro. So let's go. All right. So let's look at CAD, USD, and Euro. So we have USD. We'll be looking at USD JPY. We'll look at USD CHF. We'll look at if you have any instruments surrounding those currencies I've actually mentioned, you could actually drop them and would review them together, right? So like I said, I'm only working on instruments with high impact and medium impact units coming out for today. So anything outside that, I would not be attending to it. So if you have your own suggestions, just let me know. Someone said GBP USD, perfect. GBP USD, where's my GBP USD charts? GBP USD. So GBP USD. All right. So let's see GBP US. Someone is saying US 2000. Okay, of course we'll look into stocks, but just one one of the stocks. We'll look into one of the stocks. We'll be focusing more on euro, on currencies this morning. We'll be focusing more on currencies this morning. And somebody is saying D30. Don't you follow instructions? Okay. All right. So I think that's all. That's so let's just look at the first instrument we'll be looking at is USD JPY. USD JPY. First instrument we'll be looking at is USD JPY. Right. So if you're looking at USD JPY, USD JPY has actually hit a very high point this morning, right? Yesterday rather, and you could see that there's been a consistent rise in this particular instrument. And like I said, the dollar has actually been gaining strength. Dollar has actually been gaining strength. Let's go to dollar index first, so that we'll be able to look at the dollar critically in relation to other currency, because the US index is so the US index is actually a the dollar paired against a basket of other currency. It's the dollar paired against a basket of other currency, right? So please hold on. All right. So like I said, let's first look at US index, US dollar index. So that is USD IDX, USD IDX. Let's look at that first, and we'll be treating that one first before other currency. I think, yeah, we could also take trade on dollar index. Dollar index is also one instrument that a lot of people overlook, right? So over time, we'll be adding some new instruments. We'll be looking at T-note, which is the US bond. US bond yield, that is a 10 years US bond yield. So with time, you'll be seeing new instruments as they surface. And I implore you to embrace those new instruments, because they are very, very profitable with low risks on them. Like the T-notes, like the dollar index, trading on them would actually give you good profit margin, right? With low risks. They are volatile, but not so expensive also for those that don't really have a huge capital, right? You'd actually make a good one trading on this particular instrument, right? So for dollar index, you could see the major push up on the dollar index, right? And that started since on the 10th of May, right? That push up started since on 10th of May, and you can see it making progressive highs. You see it making progressive highs. So for this morning, the dollar actually slumped a bit, right? I think it's just more of a little bit of a retracement. So, but that retracement might actually be determinant on the news coming out on the dollar today. So if that news comes out and it is positive, we might just have what we call a flag, right? I don't know if you're familiar with a chart pattern. So you might have a flag where you have a long push, and then the market will range a bit before continuing in that direction. So, but I still expect that for this morning, we should see a little bit of a retracement, at least down to this point here. We should see a little bit of a retracement, at least down to this point here, most likely, right? Because if you look at the trend line, if you look at the trend line, you could see the progressive move. And trend line also serves as a dynamic support and a dynamic resistance for price also. So price supported here. So I'm seeing a most likely support at this convergence points here. So I expect that price should actually fall all the way down. And if you see the candlestick formation here at the top, let me zoom in a little bit. So you see this is on a 1 hour time frame, right? This is on a 1 hour time frame. So if you see the candlestick formation here, you have a little bit of you have small candles, you have your inverted hammer, more like an inverted hammer here, but not a very, very strong hammer. But the major point is that it is at a support, at a resistance point at the top. The major point is it is at a resistance point at the top. So, and since price is at a resistance at the top, I expect it to bounce off that resistance coming down. So look, if you're looking for a sell on this particular instrument on a 1 hour time frame, you could go in for an instant execution down to this point, right? You could go in for, so it's going to, because there's news coming out of the dollar, so I don't expect this sell to actually last for too long. So that's why it's a very, very short trade for those for intraday traders that want to just jump in and out of the market. For intraday traders that just want to jump in and out of the market, right? So you just want to key into a sell. Let me take out all of this so that we have more space on our chart. So you might just want to jump in for an instant sell because price has given has given this rejection at the resistance, and then you have your bearish confirmation candle here. So I'm expecting price to actually fall down to this support zone here. I'm expecting price to fall down to this support zone. So let me draw that move. So you could enter at instant execution, and then you could take your profit somewhere around somewhere around 1.02.943, right? You could take your profit somewhere around there. Well, that's on the dollar index, right? We are trading dollar index now, USD IDX, for those that are not familiar with that instrument, USD IDX, right? So this is what I expect to play out on the dollar index. So price actually retrace a little pending on that news. So by the time that news comes out, if it comes out negative for the dollar, so you would expect that price would actually break below this point. Price would actually break below this point, coming back, coming down all the way to this support zone, right? So if you want to key into the move for this morning, I just advise you going for a quick sell. Like I said, emphasis on a quick sell. You're going in for a very quick sell, right, down to this support zone, right? So you could do a screenshot. I believe you could all see my chart, right? Let me know. Okay. So the instrument is USD IDX. Let me drop that on the chat session. People are still asking. USD IDX. USD IDX. So that's the instrument, right? So so that's for a short trade for this morning. That's for a short trade for this morning. Then if you're looking in for a longer trade, probably something that will last from now to, like I said, you have to be very cautious because of the news coming out, right? You have to be very cautious because of the news coming out. So you don't want to be against the trend when the news actually comes out, because that will be very, very, very harmful to your account. That'll be very, very harmful to your account. So what we're looking at, let's now look at it on a longer time frame. So let's go to a 4-hour time frame. So on a 4-hour time frame, you could also see that progression, right? On the 4-hour time frame, you could also see that progression. Price has actually been pushing up, right? And then you could see, if you check here, the previous candle before the last two candles, right? Let me just point that out so that we can see that. Where's my insert? Objects. Okay, shapes. Why I need is an arrow, right? Okay. So if you're looking at this particular candle, yes. If you're looking at this particular candle here, all right. So if you're looking at this particular candle at the top here, you discover that, can you all hear me? I think, can you hear me? I want to be sure. If you can hear me, please let me get a yes in the chat session. Okay, perfect. So if you look at this particular candle here, you have what we call more of a long leg doji, right? You have what we call a long leg doji. So this here at the top of your resistance point is indicating a sell on this particular instrument. So you're having, well, most likely we'll be getting a reversal, right? That reversal pattern has actually started, but like I said, fundamental trumps technical analysis anytime, any day. That's why I said you need to be very watchful of what the fundamental is actually going to say for today. But technically, everything I see on this particular instrument is a sell. Everything I see on this particular instrument is a sell, technically. So and you can see that this, your long leg doji at your resistance point, and with your bearish confirmation candle, another bearish candle is actually forming. So most likely price would actually fall down to this quote resistance. This point used to be a resistance point before, but now it's now serving as a support for price because it's now below price. So I expect that price should actually fall down to this point if you're looking at it on a 4-hour time frame. So you like I said, it's still safe for you to do an instant sell on dollar index, right? It's still safe for you to do an instant sell on dollar index, and then riding that sell all the way to price level 102.943, right? You could put your take profit before then, because that's a support zone. So of course you're not putting your take profit on that support zone. You want to be sure that price hits your take profit before hitting that support. And if it's rejected at that support, of course it will start going up. So you want to be out with your profit before that rejection at that support happens. So your take profits could be anywhere around that region, anywhere around that region. So the most important thing is keying into the sell at this moment, right? The most important thing will be keying into the sell at this moment. So I wouldn't be giving a long-term trade on this particular instrument because of the way the dollar has actually been, right? I wouldn't be giving a long-term trade on this particular instrument because of the way the dollar has actually been. You might think the dollar is weak one moment and the next thing policies comes out and the dollar is strong all of a sudden again, right? So long-term trade on dollar index might not be a wise thing to actually play into at this particular point in time, since there is a lot of politics playing around the dollar at this moment, right? So let's quickly look at, we've looked at dollar index. Let's look at Euro USD. Let's look at Euro USD. So Euro USD, from the effect of the strength of the dollar, right? From the effect of the strength of the dollar, we had the Euro USD actually slump down. And all this, I think all started from, let me add my period separator. Okay, so all this actually started from the third. Yeah, it started way around the third. Around the 3rd of May. So early this month, the dollar actually had been getting a good boost. So but before then, it has actually been a tussle. The dollar gains strength, the euro pushes it back up. The dollar gains strength, the euro pushes back up. But of recent, I think it's just been a major win for the dollar. It's just been a major win for the dollar, and that has been pushing Euro USD down. But if you notice what happened yesterday, right? After this major downpour of the Euro US of the USD against the euro, after this major down movement, we started seeing a range, right? So this happened, and then the market started ranging from this point here. The market started ranging from this point, from here down to this point. So it was ranging in between that point from yesterday. So it started just ranging around that point. So what I'm actually going to be looking out for is a breakout, right? I'm actually going to be looking out mostly a breakout on this particular instrument. I'm going to be looking out for a breakout on this particular instrument. So breakout will be, because I'm expecting sentiment on both the euro and the dollar, it's going to be a dicey one, right? Because a lot of people have been saying, how do I trade when two fundamental is coming out on different currencies and I want to trade both of them in pair? What do? It's best you wait for a breakout. So in this particular instrument, you're going to be playing the patience game, right? I just call it the patience game. So you're going to be playing the patient game. You need to be as patient as you can so that you don't make the wrong decisions and start biting your fingers at the end of the day. So the patient game will be waiting for whichever effect would actually, because one is actually going to come out before the other. Of course, we will have sentiment on the euro first, before we'll have speech on the euro first before we have speech on the dollar first before we have that on the euro. So this has actually been given like I said, this range, you're expecting a breakout. So the breakout could be either to the upside or to the downside, right? Either to the upside or to the downside. So what I'll be doing is, this point here in between will be my risk zone. I wouldn't be taking a trade in this zone here. Let me take out all other horizontal lines so you understand what I'm saying. So this point here will be my risk zone, right? I wouldn't want to be taking a trade here. So from around 1.07815 to 1.07609, I wouldn't be taking any trade in between this region here. in between this region, right? I wouldn't be taking any trade in between this region, right? So I don't want to take a trade if price breaks above that point, right? If price breaks above that point to this resistance point. So I'm looking out for this particular instrument. You wouldn't say there's a clear preference as to if it's going to be a clear buy or a clear sell. But if you're smart enough, you could actually use good pending orders, right? You could actually use good pending orders and thus try and trap price down. And just try and trap price down. So, like I said, you could put pending orders for a buy around this region, right? So from around 1.07815 upward to 1.08096, you could put your pending orders around that region, depending on how many this thing. So these are for short-term trades, right? These are for short-term trades, right? So because of the, like I said, because of the way the dollar has been reacting of late, I wouldn't be giving any long entry trade on dollar. So this would give me about 27 pip, right? So you could decide how many pip out of that 27 pip you would like to score. So you could put in your pending order around that point. Then for your sell also, I think your sell should give you more. Because the one on the dollar is actually a high impact news. I'm actually rooting for the dollar for this instrument to still push down a little bit, right? I'm still looking at this instrument to push down if it is able to break the support. Just my opinion, of course, just my opinion, because I feel though the dollar has been selling for a while, but with the news coming out, I think if that news comes out in favor of the dollar, or if the speech is actually favorable for the dollar, we might still see more of a push down on this particular instrument, right? And of course, if the euro doesn't do well to actually put their acts in order, the euro USD might still continue selling. But for you to catch both or to use one stone in killing two birds, you just might want to use pending orders. So if I'm looking at this, I'm having roughly about 48 pips. Right, I'm targeting roughly about 48 pips on my sell, so I could put my pending orders around this. If price is able to break below 1.07609, if price is able to break below that, I could ride in a sell down to 1.07108. So I could ride in a sell down to that point. So anything within that range, right, you could put your pending order anything within that range. Or if you're like me and you're always on your chart, you could just wait for price to break in between those zones, right? Either up or down. You could wait for price to break in between those zones and do instant execution. So I'm looking at, for those that are going to be scalping, right? For those that are going to be scalping, these are good scalp setup. These are good scalping setup. So as soon as price breaks in between those zones, you can start scalping the market, right? Like I said, this is your risk zone. The middle here is your risk zone. So I believe you're doing screenshot of this chart, because once we go off, you might not have this information again, right? So just do a screenshot so you'd be able to go back to it and relate it to your chart by the time you're taking your trades, right? So I wouldn't want to take a trade in between this point. This is high risk. Taking a trade in between this point will be high risk, because you might take a buy now and then it comes out very good for the dollar, and sentiment around the dollar pushes euro USD down, and you might take a sell now and the sentiment goes in favor of the euro and then pushes that particular instrument up, right? So you have that being said, that would be my take on euro USD. So let's look at we've looked at US index, dollar index, we've looked at euro USD. Let's look at so let's also look at USD JPY. Let's look at USD JPY. So that will be $3 pair. So we'll also look at 3 card pair, 1 indices, and we'll call it a day, right? So let's look at USD JPY. For USD JPY, you could see, so one thing about the JPY is that every morning, right, if you've been following the JPY, because it's the Asian zone, right, early hours of the morning, you might have a little bit of a push down. The price actually goes in favor of the JPY almost every morning on USD JPY. So it's more like an expo, though. If you notice, every morning you have a little bit, no matter how it is, but at least in the morning you should get a little bit of a push down, because that's their trading zone. right? Bless me. That's their trading zone. So every morning, if you're a night crawler, you could just stay up at night or stay up to early hours of the morning and try to key into the sell move on USD JPY. It's not consistent, but over time I've looked at it and it's 90% accurate, right? It's 90% accurate. So if you wake up early hours of the morning, as soon as the Asian zone is opening up, right, you get that little push down on USD JPY, and that can even be all the trades you need to take for the day, right? That can even be all the trade you need to take for the day. So for USD JPY, we had this little push, right? Little push down on USD JPY, but like I said, sentiment is coming out, or news is coming out on the dollar. So I don't expect this sell. And of course, it has already sold down to my trend line here. If you notice, it has already sold down to my trend line here. So this retracement is more or less gone, right? This retracement is more or less gone. So my retracement here is gone. So I wouldn't be looking at, I don't think entering a sell again on this particular instrument would be a smart thing to do, because very soon by 2:30, right, the US, the New York market would actually open, and that would give the dollar a boost, at least a push up. So going in on a sell on USD JPY wouldn't be a smart thing to do. Price being rejected at this trend line, I expect that price should actually push back to the resistance at the top. And if the news comes out positive for the dollar, that should also break this ceiling, right? That should also break this ceiling here. That should break the ceiling, pushing price back up, right? Pushing price back up. So if you're going in for a quick trade, I'd like that I mean, why wait? Why not just, you could use your buy limits, right? At this point here where you have my trend line supporting price, you could use a buy limit, or you could say, you could just go in for an instant buy trade, because price would most likely be rejected at this point, right? You could, so, and even if price falls short of that place, right? Even if price falls short of that particular trend line, down all the way to this point here, there's still every possibility price will still push up. So from my 137.970 to 137.55, even if price breaks in between those regions, you can still you could still stick your neck out for a buy. So I'm going to be buying in between this region, because I want price to actually fully rest or break below my trend line, or just because it's unlikely that it would actually close below that trend line. Despite the fact that it's selling now, sentiment around the dollar is actually still going to push this instrument back up. So you could go in for an instant buy, or you could wait. If price breaks in between this region, you're still safe to still go in for your buy. You're still safe to still go in for your buy, right? So, and then you're buying up all the way to this. Let me mark this as let me give it a different color so we know what we're doing. So let's give this blue, right? Let's give this most likely red, right? Let's give this most likely red. Okay. So that being marked out, let me take out this and get my green line from here. Okay, so from here to here is still going to be a good place for you to still stick your neck in for a buy. And my $137.555 mark will be a good place to hop out if price comes out negative for the dollar. So if that sentiment comes out, or if the news comes out negative for the dollar, of course, you should expect that USD JPY should actually fall. So of course, you want to stop out that trade if price breaks below this point. So if price breaks below this point, so this point can act as your stop loss, right? This point can act as your stop loss. But I expect that at least even before the news comes out, positive sentiment should actually drive this chart up. So going in for a quick buy, right, up all the way to this particular point here at 138.996 would actually be the best decision to do, right? That's what I would do, right? So like I said, I won't be giving long-term trade, despite the fact that price is at the top of the resistance. For those that are going in for a long-term trade, you might expect that price would actually drop all the way down in the long run. But like I said, there's a lot of politics playing around the dollar now. So I don't think I'd advise anybody to go in for a long-term trade, right, at this particular point in time, right? So that's the three instruments on the dollar. Let's look at CAD. Let's look at CAD. Let's look at CAD since we have news coming out on CAD, right? Let's look at GBP CAD. Let's look at GBP CAD, right? So for GBP CAD also, you could also see the GBP against CAD. You could see that CAD has actually been winning markets. CAD has actually been winning this market. And for an instrument like GBP CAD, I think both economies are actually very, very at par. Both economies are actually very, very at par, because most times you get range on this particular instrument and they last for days, right? They last for days. Like if you see this one that happened here, you had that range actually started all the way from here. Let me make this bold so we all see what I'm talking about. So that range actually started from here up all the way to here before it was able to break below. And you could see it was a massive one. So all traders would have been doing at that point in time was to trade in between these points here and here. So you're going either you're putting in sell limit at the top, buy limit at the bottom. So it keeps bouncing up, down, up, down, up, down. For how many days? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. Wow. So price actually ranged for 6 days before it finally broke below that particular zone. And then since then, and that was because I think CAD itself has actually been doing well. And CAD is a petrochemical currency, right? CAD is a petrochemical currency. And if the oil is actually doing well, if oil is doing well as an instrument, you should also see, but it's not 100% correlation though, right? When it comes to correlations, there are some instruments that correlate, like you have gold in inverse correlation to the dollar, right? Gold has inverse correlation to the dollar. So if dollar is going up, gold might be coming down, and if gold is going down, dollar might be going up, right? So and this correlation, don't forget, despite the fact that these correlations are there, but they are not always 100%. Why? Because even though there are correlations, there are still certain things that move each of these instruments on its own, right? So if you're looking at the gold to dollar correlation, right? Despite the fact that the gold is a safe haven for the dollar, don't forget gold itself is still a commodity that people buy, right? People use gold for jewelries, people use gold for so many other things, for buildings and a lot of other things, right? So despite the fact that there are times where you see the dollar doing well and you might also see gold doing well, and such scenario might be, let's paint this picture. For example, the dollar is actually doing well as an economy, but right, countries are buying more of gold to, let's say, keep as their reserve, right? They need to have more reserve in gold, and countries are buying it. And then there's a massive festival in India, right? And India is one of the largest consumers of gold, right? So they adorn their women with a lot of gold, right? And their temples and all of that, you see gold almost everywhere, especially during their festive period. So during that time, you see the price of gold actually spike up. So those are some scenarios where you have dollar and gold moving in the same direction. So I just want to point out that some of these correlations are not 100%. Sometimes there could be 90% correlation. Sometimes there can be 45% correlation, depending. So for CAD and oil, it's not 100% correlation, but most likely whenever you see oil doing well, you'd actually see CAD also doing well, right? So let's go back to our GBP CAD. Okay, so let's go back to our GBP CAD. So for GBP CAD, we've had CAD actually win this market for I think 3 days in a row. CAD had actually won this market for 3 days in a row. And I think what we are having here is a little bit of a retracement, but I still expect this downtrend to still continue a bit, right? I still expect this downtrend to still continue a bit. Price might actually retrace a little bit to this resistance point, right? Let's draw our trend line at the top also, so we could catch. So I have my trend line at the top here. I have my trend line at the top here, and then my trend line at the bottom here, right? So sorry, I don't mean to confuse you with all my lines, but all this, I can assure you that all this line helps you give a clear decision as to what you would want to do in the market. Of course, so since I have my trend line being mapped out here. Let me zoom in a little bit so you're able to follow through on this analysis, because analysis is the key when it comes to this business, right? So look at price has actually been as is been retracing from this support here. You have more of a double bottom here, but because of the sentiment or because of the news coming out for the CAD, I still expect that CAD should be able to break this support zone, right? CAD should be able to break this support zone, and if CAD breaks below this support, you still see CAD actually fall all the way down. So for me as a trader, I wouldn't want to trade in between these points here, right? So I wouldn't want to trade in between these points. Don't forget, it's news and it's a data news. Let's go back to Forex Factory to verify that, right? So it's a data news. Perfect. So we have by 1:30, we have core retail sales, we have retail sales. Core retail sales, we have retail sales, and it's a data news. So we expect that if it comes out positive for CAD, that should break that support. That should break that support, right? So for this morning, you might just see little candles depending on when that news actually comes out. So if it comes out positive, that should break that support, pushing CAD down. But if it comes out negative or if it comes out neutral, you might still see that retracement now. Actually, you might see that's actually going to a full-blown retracement, right? You might see that going into a full-blown retracement. So let's go back to the chart, right? So that being said, what I want to do is to stick out for a sell if price, as soon as price breaks below this point at 1.670, 1.67201, right? I want to go in for a sell around that point. Of course, I would go in. Let's change the color to this so we have a better perspective of what to do. So, of course, I want to go in for a sell. Should price break below this point, my benchmark for cutting out my losses should be around here. My benchmark for cutting out my losses should be around here. So let me drag this down, right? So my benchmark for cutting out my losses, because if price break, if I'm on a sell and price is able to break this my trend line here, I know that a full-blown retracement is about to start, right? I know that a full-blown retracement is about to start. So if price is able to break above my trend line, I would just more of cut my losses and move on, right? I would just cut my losses and move on. But if you look at it, from this point here where I'm looking at going in for an entry, the next possible support, we have a very close support here, but I think the effect of the card should actually break the effect of the card. If it should it come out, because it's two news, though they are medium impact news, the effect of card, should it come out positive, should actually give it the boost it needs to break two supports, most likely, right? The effect from the news should give it the boost to actually break to support. So if you're calculating on an intraday trade, I'm looking at going in, that's giving me roughly about 56 pips. So I'm targeting 56 pips in profit on this particular instrument. I'm targeting about 56 pip in profits, right? 56, yeah. 56, 58 or thereabout on this particular instrument. So this would be my risk zone, right? Like I said, I wouldn't be taking a trade in between these points. Let me bring this closer so we could all see. So I wouldn't be taking a trade in between this zone here. I wouldn't be taking a trade in between this zone. So I want it to break below that point, right? So you could just take a look to your chart. As soon as price is able to break below this point, I'm going in heads in. I'm going in heads in for my sell. I'm going in heads in for my sell, right? So my preference on this particular instrument is most likely a sell, right? Most likely a sell, despite the fact that it is buying now. I expect it to get to this resistance, and then, of course, not just a resistance point now. My trend line is also serving as a resistance. So at this intersection here would be a very, very strong hold for price, and I don't think price would most likely break it, considering the fact that there is no news on GBP today. So I'll be pitching for a sell. So even if you are not taking a trade, or even if you want to take a trade from this zone, you should also still be considering a sell. Even if you want to take a trade in this particular zone, you should also still be considering a sell, right? Don't forget to put your stop loss. You could leave your take profit open, but put in your stop loss should the news actually go against it, right? So let's look at another GBP, another card pair. Okay, so let's go for another card pair. So let's look at CAD JPY. Let's look at CAD JPY, and then lastly we'll look at CAD CHF. Lastly, we'll look at CAD CHF. So because those two are of the Asian zone, right? We are not expecting any high impact news, any news from them. Who signed me out? Can you all hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. All right. So because those two are in the Asian zone, and I'm not expecting any high impact news on them, it will be a good it will be a good take to take trade on that particular set of instruments. To be a good trade if you're taking it, because you're looking at more of a one-sided direction. You're looking at more of a one-sided direction. So I'm coming. Let me just give it the appropriate colors so that you could actually follow me, follow through. All right. So looking at CAD JPY, looking at CAD JPY, you also see that CAD is also been winning this market here. CAD being the base currency here has also been winning this market. And like I said, if you're looking at JPY pairs, every early hours of the morning, you could actually key into this little bit of a push down, right? It's always a small body they shake every time on JPY. I've noticed it for a while, right? Sometimes it's just that most persons won't be awake at that particular point in time. But I mean, it's money, right? I don't think there's anything that should keep you up aside money, right? So if you know that you really want to make money from trading the Asian session, you should learn to also sacrifice some sleep at least to be able to key into JPY and CHF trades, right? So I'm looking at this little retracement, and this retracement, as you see, it has gotten to its threshold, gotten to this Tonkot resistance at this point here. This resistance used to be, this point used to be a resistance, but now it is now supporting price at this point. So I don't think there should be a further sell on this particular instrument. So I most likely will not be going for, personally, I wouldn't be going for a sell on this instrument, looking at the fact that we have more, news coming out on the CAD. So I'd want to be taking a trade as soon as price is being rejected from this support zone, right? I want to be taking my trade as soon as price is being rejected from this support zone. Also drawing my trend line to see that consistent high, right? So you could see that the trend line just aligns very well. The trend line just aligns very well. So price is already at the intersection here. Price is already at the intersection here. So price has gotten to my support and is also being supported at my trend line. I expect that price should actually push up from here. So I most likely will be going for a buy, right? My preference on this particular instrument to be a buy. You could go in, if you are an early bird, you could go in for an instant buy, or you could wait for price to break above this resistance point at the top here and then follow in that buy, right? But early bird would actually make more money than those that are waiting for price to actually break this resistance, because once this rejection starts, right, you would actually make money all the way to this point and then still stretch your take profit up all the way. So most likely I'll be targeting roughly about 50, 60 pips, or let's say 100 pip on this particular instrument, looking at the fundamental coming out. So this is 70 pip. You could stretch it up to 100, but like I said, if you're using good lot size, if you're using a very good lot size, you don't need to stretch your take profit so far, right? You don't need to stretch your take profit so far. So I'm looking at 100 pip take profit. I'm looking at 100 pip take profit. But if you're using a good lot size, I mean, if you can get 50, 30 pip take profit with a good lot size, you'll be cutting your trade out around here. That's for those that will be entering from this particular point. So this will, let me use clear color lines so you'd understand, you get a better insight as to what I'm saying. So this will be my benchmark to cut out my losses. This will be my benchmark to cut out my losses should price actually break below this point. So because price is already being supported at that point, I might want to bring down my stop loss down to this point here. Yes, I might want to bring down my stop loss down to this point here, right? So of course, anything from here, anything in between this region, you could still go in for a buy. You could key into your buy now. You could, and even if price is able to do a fake out, because most times price might actually do a fake out from a support, like it tries to come below the support on that candle and then pushes back up. Even if price does a fake out, I will still stick my head for a buy, on this particular instrument. So you could buy now, you could wait for price to further come down, then end, because the best point to enter your buy trade is at the lowest point, right? The lowest possible point. So I'm looking at, you could enter now. If price comes all the way to this low point, it's still fine. You're still in the game. But for the only reason why you might need to cut out that trade is if it comes out negative for the card, right? And then price breaks all the way price breaks all the way down to this point. If price breaks below this point, then you wouldn't be a wise person if you're still holding on to that trade, right? So that's being said for card JPY. So my benchmark for my take profit. So if you're looking at it, if you're entering anything from here, if you, let's say you're entering at the current market price up all the way to this point, that's about 157 pips. So that's quite a lot, right? If you're using a good lot size, that will still fetch you a good amount of money, right? So let's look at card CHF. Let's look at card CHF. Same thing is actually playing out at card CHF. You know, one thing is for you to trade the market, and one thing is for you to also pick out favorable instruments. Why I pick card CHF and card JPY is because I'm not expecting high impact news on CHF nor JPY. So I know that on such a chart, I'll be having a clear-cut direction, because one instrument at some point in time is going to be far stronger or far weaker. So if it comes out negative for the card, right, the card is actually going to be far weaker than the CHF and the JPY. And if it comes out positive for the card is actually going to be far stronger than the card or JPY. So either ways, you'll still be making winners on the trade. So being decisive of what's charged, I'm too fast. I'm very sorry I talk so fast, but I'll try as much as possible to slow down, right? And it's not easy to talk for a very long time, right? So just bear with me. So as soon as price is able to or as soon as the news comes out, like I said, CHF is also in the Asian zone, and you could see this little bit of a downpour from the earlier, that's from the Asian session this morning. But that's the same thing. That retracement is also coming to an end. So I would also still be sticking out my neck for a buy on this particular instrument. I'll be sticking out my neck for a buy on this particular instrument. So price is resting on this particular support now, right? And let's draw our trend line also. You could see this progressive high starting from here. Oh, I picked an horizontal line instead. Okay. Drawing my trend line from this point, you could see the progression, right? You could see the progression, right? So though I still expect some persons will say, okay, I expect that price should actually come down to this zone, to this point here. But don't forget, support and resistance point is a zone, right? Most likely it wouldn't come down to touch that line, right? It's a zone. So in as much as it is in between that zone, so there's every possibility that this instrument will still sell all the way to these points. But I wouldn't want to go in for a sell. It wouldn't be smart for you to try and pick in, because it will just be a very short trade. Trust me, it will just be a very short trade that wouldn't be worth it. So if I'm going in for a sell, for example, you want to go in for a sell from here, if price breaks here all the way to this point, a very short and very, very risky trade, I would say. A very short and very risky trade, considering the fact that you have news coming out on card. What if you try to say, okay, let me just skin into that short trade, just little, and then you say that little, you just try and jump in, and all of a sudden price starts going against you, and then you risk it all for nothing. You get? So rather than going for a sell for price to hit this trend line, this support zone, I'd rather stick my neck for a buy. So while price is coming down, I still keep entering in a buy. While price is coming down, I still keep entering in a buy, because I believe the general trend is still going to be in favor of the card. I believe the general trend is still going to be in favor of the card. So I'd go in for, this would be my risk zone, or this would be my trading zone. You could enter currently at the current market price, right? You could enter currently at the current market price. And this should be my first take profit point, right? This would be my first take profit point. At the top here will be my first take profit point. So from year to year, from 0.66895 to 0.66777 will be my risk zone, right? I could keep entering my buy from that point. But if price breaks below this last horizontal line, below this support, of course, you just would like to just cut out your losses and move on, right? You would just like to cut out your losses and move on. Don't hold on to losses. It's not a smart thing to do. Don't hold on to losses. It's not a smart thing to do, right? So this would be my benchmark to cut out that trade should it break below that point. That's if it comes out negative for the card. But of course, I think this retracement should start anytime soon, right? This rejection should actually start anytime soon. So you could go in for an instant buy, right? You could go in for an instant buy. And if price drops into this region, you can still key in for a buy up all the way to this point here. So I think that's roughly about from here down to this point, that's roughly about 100 and that's about 41 point pips. That's about 41 pip. Don't forget for card CHF is not really a very expensive instrument. So you wouldn't be making so much if you're using a very, very small lot size. You wouldn't be making so much if you're using a very small lot size. So because of the nature of these instruments, if you are to make good profit from this particular instrument, you want to ensure that you are using a reasonable lot size, so it amounts to a reasonable amount of profit, right? You wouldn't be making so much on card CHF, right? So that being said, we'll look at one US index and then one US index, and then we'll call it a day. So I think someone actually mentioned gold. So rather than look at which one, let's do a vote. I'm picking either US index or gold. So first person, someone said US 100, someone said gold, someone said US 100. So I have two gold, one US 100. So I have more of gold. Okay, so let's go for gold. All right. So let's look at gold, and then we'll call this class a day. So for gold, we actually see a major retracement from the last fall from yesterday. You're seeing price actually trying to retrace from the last fall of yesterday. Gold has actually been having its worst run in recent times, and that's because of the sudden strength in the dollar, right? And you could see that being played. Price actually ranged around here yesterday after this almost about 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. I don't know how many people keyed into these 4 hours of sell on gold. How many people actually keyed into these 4 hours of sell on gold? It was a massive one, right? It was a massive one. I actually took out profit on gold. Then I tried doing a buy limit on my gold, right? I tried doing a buy limit on gold, expecting that price would actually retrace, come up, hit that point, and start coming back down. But unfortunately, it didn't hit that my distance. So it's a pending order, and I'm most likely going to take it out. But I expect that this morning, despite the fact that gold is actually pushing up, I don't think it will be able to break above these points. Looking at the fact that we have high impact news coming out on the dollar today. So I don't think so. It might actually buy up all the way to this point here, right? It might actually buy up all the way to this point here before coming back down, right? So what I'll be looking out for, I'll be looking at buying some person okay, I'll be looking at selling rather. I'll be looking at selling once price is able to hit this my resistance point. So I'll sell from here. Around this point. So if you're a scalper, right, because gold is a little bit more volatile than currencies, you would want to just scalp in a sell. You could go in for instant sales, multiple sell positions, and then just scalp price until it comes back to this support, because I expect it to range in between this region, looking at the fact that there's a news coming out. So I don't think break above this point. So it goes up to this point. It's being rejected. It's even being rejected at this point here. So if you're going in for a short-term trade, if you're looking at it on a 15 minutes time frame, right, or let's go to a 5 minutes time frame. If you're going for going to a five minutes time frame, you could see this major rejection 1, 2, 3. So I'm most likely will be going in for a sell. You could scalp a sell. Instant execution on a 5 minutes time frame would actually give you. Also consider your spread. Also, let me put in my axe line. All right, so you could also consider this instant execution sell, and you could just scalp the market, but I'd most likely would scalp on a sell direction rather than look out for a buy on this particular instrument. I most likely will be looking out for more of a sell, because price has been giving 3 rejections at the top, and it most likely will fall all the way down to this point. So If it breaks here, it most likely will fall all the way to this point here, and before coming all the way back down here. Looking at the fundamentals coming out today, right? Looking at the fundamentals coming out today. So no problem. Gold, my preference is a sell. If you're scalping, scalp more of a sell position than a buy position. And if you're entering an intraday trade on gold, is also going to be a sell. Looking at the sentiment coming out around the dollar. And by the time the news comes out, of course, the best way to actually trade fundamental is to be on the chart few minutes before the fundamental actually comes out. I want to be on the chart few minutes to when the fundamental will be coming out, and then you're following the market direction. As soon as the news comes out, you start following the reaction of the market. Sometimes I like to wait maybe 2-3, let's say 2 minutes, until when the news has actually dropped, except on CPI, because on CPI, if you're waiting 2 minutes, you might miss out on the move, right? Because within the first 2 minutes, you get a major push down of price, right? But on news like this, you might just want to make maybe a minute or 2 minutes, so that sometimes you see the news comes out positive and then it goes in the opposite direction for the first few minutes and then starts going in the actual direction. So you just want to wait for that fake out to happen. So wait 1-2 minutes for that fake out to actually happen before you now go in for your trade, right? So like I said, if you started scalping a sell on gold, you should actually be close to hitting your profit, or you should be close to going into profit by now. So that's my preference on all the instruments we've given out for today. And till we meet again, right? Please do follow us on YouTube, right? Follow us, Rally Trade on YouTube, and all these analyses are being uploaded on YouTube, so you could go back, do a recap. And the major focus when it comes to doing analysis like this is for you to understand how these things work, right? It's not to spoon feed you, because a lot of people, or a lot of new traders get spoiled on over analysis. So the main thing is for you to understand how these things work. That's why I take my time, because I could just easily just come here and start giving you entries, going for a buy, going for a sell, enter at this point, go out at this point, right? But I took my time to actually draw out this line, explain why I'm actually doing or taking this action, so that in the long run, when you want to take your trade, you would have a clear understanding as to why this thing was done, and that would better inform you or give you clear decisions as to what to do when you're faced with this particular scenario again, right? So it's been wonderful hosting you. Do have a wonderful day, right? Do have a wonderful day.